Today we're going to talk about religion in Turkey and whether or not, if you come here, can you be a Christian, a Jew, a Jehovah's Witness, or whatever? And when you're in Turkey, you think of, like behind us, a mosque. Well, we're about to go to church for Christmas Eve service, as well as brunch for Christmas. Come on. So as you walk the streets of Turkey and here in Antalya, you'll see mosques. Every corner seems like there's a mosque, and it's quite impressive. So we were surprised when we were approached by some Jehovah's Witnesses in the area that they were out practicing freely. Now, we knew Turkey was a secular country, and we had lunch with them, and we asked them about their religion there in Turkey, and it made us start to think about, what about other religions? So we did some research and looked up other churches that were practicing within the Antalya region, and specifically, what about Christmas? We were pleasantly surprised by the large amount of diverse types of churches that were in the area. So if you're Orthodox or Catholic or Protestant, there's going to be a church for you, and there's a plethora of different churches that speak different languages. So looking for English language speaking churches was actually quite easy. So we found St. Paul Cultural Center. There's actually 4 churches that practice here. There's a Russian church, there's a Iranian church, and there's a Turkish church and an English church, all operating from this building. They were going to have a Christmas Eve service, so we planned on coming there for the Christmas Eve service, and while we were there, we were invited to come to the Christmas Day brunch for those that are there without family. So that was a real exciting thing. Now, during the Christmas Eve service, they asked that we did not video because they cannot get permission from everybody. So this is the sanctuary of the church, and there's typically about 100 people that will come here for summer services and a little bit less in the winter. And there's a cafe called Paul's Cafe that's connected to the church, and so if you don't go to church here, you can still support by coming in and getting a piece of the cake and getting some coffee, and those extra dollars go to help the church community here in the Antalya Turkey area. We're getting a piece of the San Sebastian. Yay! I will share with you later in the video the church handout that was given out on Christmas Eve, so you can see what the service consisted of. But this is the Christmas Day brunch, and it had a great spread. So now, if this is your first video watching Julie and I, we're traveling the world with our 2 dogs. We're trying to find out what it's like to live in other countries, other cities, other locations, and we're trying to share our experiences and expenses with you. Sometimes we do the tourist things, but we try to make sure we're giving you solid information. So if you wanted to retire, whether you're retiring on Social Security, on a pension, or if you're looking at being a digital nomad and trying to go overseas, you'll have an idea of what to expect when you get there, as well as the cost of living. Make sure you check out our social media on Facebook. Look for Warren Julie Travel under groups. You can also find us on Instagram and our website, www.warrenjulietravel.com, and you can find out information about traveling insurance if you're an international traveler and other things. So this was a wonderful brunch. A lot of people here, and you know, if you get a chance to come to Antalya and you're looking for a church place, this is a great little community. People are constantly coming and going. Some people here for 3 months, some for 6 months, some for a year or 2. So it is a place that's always bringing in new people. So don't be afraid to walk in, and you'll find somebody here that will want to hang out with you, and you can make a quick friendship here. So we're in the church courtyard here in Antalya, Turkey, and we're sitting here with Pastor Robin, although he likes to go by Robin. So we're here with Robin, and he's leading the congregation here in Antalya. We're going to spend Christmas Eve here, and we're going to come back for brunch in the morning. But you know, we'd like to get Robin to share with us his experiences and his background and of having a church here in a country like Turkey, which is predominantly Muslim, but there's other religions here. It's a secular country, if you weren't aware of that. So Robin, can you tell us a little bit about what brought you here, your background and life?
In general?
Yes.
How long do you have? Anyway, we were here for a conference in 2015, and we just, at that time we had really no intention of coming here, but at that time we just really felt that this was where we would be eventually ending up. At that point, my wife and I were in the middle of a 4-year commitment elsewhere, and at the end of that time, we arrived here, not really intending to pastor the church. We came originally to run a guest house for a counseling center, and for clients coming in for a counseling center, and one thing led to another, and that was in 2017. And so 2019, 2 years later, I became the pastor here at St. Paul Union Church.
Okay, so since 2019 you've been leading the congregation. How large of a congregation do you have?
That depends. On an average Sunday morning, we can have between 80 and 100 people.
Oh, wow.
In the church.
That's a good size.
That's a decent size.
And to be clear, you're not the only Christian church in town.
No. There are Russian churches, and let's not talk about congregations, because in this building alone there's an English congregation, a Turkish congregation, a Russian congregation, and a Iranian congregation all meet in this building. So and then in other places there's Ukrainian church. There's a few other Russian churches. There's a West African church, mainly people from Nigeria, but also from other places in West Africa, also meet over by big mall, Mark Antalya. There's I think somebody was talking to the head of security here in town, and it's his job to know these kinds of things. He says there's 18 churches in town.
Wow. And well, you're right next door to the Greek Orthodox Church.
Yep.
And this is
actually it's a Russian Orthodox.
It's a Russian Orthodox Church. Okay, next door. And then we have a Protestant church where we are here. And
there's a German Catholic church across the street as well.
So a German Catholic is that like Roman Catholic?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So you've got all these different Christian religions here, and we actually ran into Jehovah's Witnesses on the streets too. So there's a large mix of different folks here that are practicing other religions. While 98+% of the country is of a Muslim faith, there are opportunities if you're looking at coming to Turkey or moving to Turkey, and you have you're religious and you want to continue to practice and find a church home. You have that ability here in Antalya, and actually in Istanbul and other larger cities around Turkey.
Generally in the larger cities, you'll find an English-speaking congregation somewhere.
Yes. So you are from
Scotland originally, yes.
And big difference for you here?
Well, I haven't lived in Scotland since I was 20, so I didn't come here directly from Scotland. So so my wife and I met in the Netherlands in the 1980s.
1980s?
Yeah, and got married there. She's from Canada. So really, home for our family, when we're not here, would be in Canada rather than Scotland.
And you're a preacher here, and were you a preacher, or did you have a church anywhere before you were here in Turkey?
Yeah, before I was here, I was 4 years pastoring the International Church in Kabul, Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
Everybody responds that way.
Well, no, but we have a tie here. We have a friend who's actually driving around the continent, and actually they just passed Morocco in an RV. His father was a preacher in Afghanistan when he was young growing up, and he lived in Afghanistan for several years.
Okay.
Do you know the Jennings, or have you heard of him?
I know the name.
Okay, so his father was a preacher in Afghanistan for many years, and he lived there as a child. So this is a small world, and a very surprising connection. So that's awesome. So this is not your first Muslim country. This is not your first rodeo.
No, we lived in Afghanistan for 4 years. Before that, I was pastoring in Canada for 12 years. And before that, my wife and I worked in humanitarian aid with Afghan refugees in Pakistan for 12 years.
Do you speak any other languages besides English?
I used to speak Farsi before I tried to learn Turkish. Now I know neither. That's just being honest. Yeah.
As far as being a preacher in Turkey, are there things that you have to do, or intricacies about living in this country and running a church that you have to navigate with the culture? And how are the Turkish people welcoming?
Generally, Turkish people are very welcoming. Just as it's a Middle Eastern culture. Hospitality is a really important value in the Middle East. So generally speaking, Turks are very, very welcoming, and it's we've never had any, in my time here, never had really any negative responses.
So you feel safe as here in Turkey as a Christian?
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, I have been surprised over the last year when we first crossed the border about how safe I felt and how welcome I felt, and so I'm not really surprised to hear your answer. But I'm sure that many of them at home have an idea, if they're living in the United States or Canada and have never been to Turkey, and they have their mindset about what it's like to be a Christian in a Muslim nation.
Well, I mean, there's this site called Numbeo, which does you're aware of Numbeo.
Numbeo.
They do this, standard of living comparison between various countries. This is how much a meal out costs and stuff like that. One of the things they measure is the safety index. Antalya is safer than most cities in the States.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it.
Yes.
I walk around at night. I feel perfectly
Yeah,
safe.
exactly.
Safe.
Now, Julie and I hit the Numbeo site quite often and look at different cost of living things, as well as the safety index. And we can show you the Antalya information right here, just for your interest, to look at some of the safety numbers. With running the church here, are there challenges or things that you would want to explain to people that are in a Western country that would be surprising, or something that is maybe it's not surprising, that's so normal? Anything that you want to share?
Somebody wrote a book about Pastoring International Church. They called it Pastoring a Parade, because the vast majority of people in an international church are only around for a short time, whereas most churches are pretty stable. But we have people here in the congregation from, so you got like 80, to 100 people from 15, 20 countries in the congregation. And so that's both a blessing and a challenge, because different people have different expectations of what church is about and what it's like. So we're probably a little bit too subdued for the Africans, and maybe a little bit too wild for the Anglicans, and everybody else in between.
Oh wow! So now you did bring up an interesting point, though. You have 15 different nationalities here.
At least, yeah.
And so if you haven't left the country to this side of the world before, a lot of people use English as a bridge language.
Yeah.
They may not be first English speakers, but they'll end up at an English-speaking church because that's the second language that they know. And there's actually more English speakers, when you count the people that speak as a second language in the world, than any other language in the world, including Chinese. Now, first language speakers, the Chinese got us outnumbered, but as far as second language, English is the largest language, and it's spread throughout the planet. So you have a lot of people here that will speak very understandable, fluent English as a second language.
Yeah, we have people for whom English is their first language. So, like people from Kenya, English, English is their first language.
Right.
They have usually multiple other languages, but yeah, they're English-speaking people. We have some folks from Nigeria, we have people from South Sudan, Cameroon. So Cameroon is both French and English-speaking. It's like Canada. Has some of the same tensions as Canada, and so we have both French and English-speaking Cameroonians in the congregation, but we worship in English. So yeah, there's a whole raft of people. Of course, for many people, they do their higher education in English, and so that's so you have folks from we've folks from Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, who are whose English is often better than mine.
Yes. No, I've been surprised with how fluent so many of these English as a second language folks are.
Yeah.
I was just at the co-working space here doing interviews and getting to know some of the people over there, and people from all over the world, from Jordan, from Iran, from all over Europe and even Asia, that are able to speak English so clearly that you almost think it's their first language.
Yep.
So, is there anything that you would like to share with the viewers about life in Turkey?
It's the nicest place I've ever lived. I've lived in Scotland, England, the Netherlands, Canada, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Turkey. I think that's all the countries I've lived in.
Wow.
And for like, actually lived. Actually had a home and stuff like that. And this is by far the nicest place I've ever lived. And if you want to have, if you're concerned for your health and you want to come have a Mediterranean diet, come to the Mediterranean. It comes with the neighborhood, it's seriously a lovely place. And people often don't realize just how big Turkey is. Because everybody looks at the Anatolian Peninsula. It sticks out from into the Mediterranean, kind of between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, and actually there's a whole other half of the country that goes all the way over to Iran. So and actually when we left Pakistan as a family in 2001, we shipped our gear and we backpacked from Pakistan to Switzerland with our teenage kids. And which meant that we traveled through Iran and Turkey and spent a fair amount of time in both countries. And so we've actually seen a fair chunk of the country just traveling through it. And it is a beautiful place. You've got mountains, you've got high plateau, you've got the maquis of the Mediterranean area, and it's the kind of place, actually, like lots of Europeans go on vacation to places like Spain and south of France, the Balearic Islands, right? And Turkey is just like all that, only cheaper.
No, and I will tell you, I was surprised when I got to Turkey. I was expecting just a big dust bowl, a lot of desert, and I've been surprised about
where are the camels? We don't do camels here.
Yeah, the landscape, the mountains, the forest. It's actually quite diverse and very beautiful areas. And the coastline is beautiful.
They call this a turquoise coast, and that's actually the color of the water.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
it's gorgeous here. I think if you're a Christian believer and you were looking for a place to maybe retire and move outside of your home country and seek residency somewhere, you can actually do that in Turkey and not be having to give up your faith. You can still come and practice, and let this be a lesson, I guess, for people of other religions too. Even if you're not Christian, if you were looking to come to Turkey, it is a secular country, so there's probably a good chance that your religion is somewhere represented also within the landscape of this diverse country. So Robin, thank you for your time today, and we appreciate you letting us spend our Christmas Eve with you and your congregation, and we're looking forward to brunch tomorrow as well. And so for those of you at home, as a reminder, Jillian and I, we're traveling the world with our two dogs. We're trying to see what it's like to live in other countries, other locations, and we're trying to share our expenses and our experiences with you. So we hope that you're going to subscribe, give this video a like, and until next time, have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.